in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate.
Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Checkered. Hell yeah. 11 got it.
Proud of you there, Mac. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day.
Great work, my man. Great work. Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Therefore, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark, and I appreciate you tuning in for this crazy, wild episode of Racing in the Draft for the Iowa Corn 350. Yes, it is a lot of corn that gets grown in Iowa. I can't remember what they said on the broadcast, something like 12 billion bushels or something. Insane. So, yeah, why not name the race after your biggest agricultural product of the state, Iowa corn. Gotta love it. First time in NASCAR Cup Series history that they will go race at this 7/8 of a mile short track, designed very, very similar to Richmond International Raceway, and designed by Rusty Wallace himself, who was really, really good at short track racing. This is a awesome racetrack, but it's going to be chaotic. It's going to be weird. It's going to be strange. It's going to be strategies. It's going to be you throw at it, and this is going to be a wild race. If practice qualifying, the ARCA race and the Xfinity race were any prelude to this race. This race is pretty much Iowa told Bristol Motor Speedway to, yeah, you think you had a wild race? Hold my beer. I'll be right back. Yeah, this could be potentially one of the most chaotic races we have in the next gen era. It's literally like they have never driven this car before. Tire wear is all over the place. Right fronts are, in practice, Christopher Bell, who actually did the tire test here at Iowa 3-4 weeks ago, didn't seem to have any issues. And he literally, after 20 laps of practice, blew a right front tire and destroyed his car and is having to go to a backup. Yeah, all the drivers are like, we don't know. I'm sure the crew chiefs are like, we don't know. I've got some pictures to share from the Xfinity race here in just a few moments once we get to it. But before we dive really deep into Iowa Corn 350, let's go back to wine country. All about some agriculture the last couple weeks. So let's go back to Sonoma for the Save Mart 350, where Kyle Larson won another very unique road course race. Lots of strategy, tire wear, fuel mileage. We kind of threw everything at this. Almost a record number of cautions for Sonoma. And Kyle Larson ended up finding a way to the front. Martin Truex Jr. ran out of gas. Kyle Busch ran out of gas after getting spun. That wasn't the reason he ran out of gas, but it probably didn't help his cause any. But a chaotic, crazy race, and we're going to follow it up with probably another crazy, chaotic race. So let's look at our optimal lineups from Sonoma from last week. Yeah, I want to make sure the volume was working. Ever since I had that one hiccup, I always get paranoid now. The optimal lineups from Sonoma really seemed to be a place differential except for Kyle Larson. We had 5 place differentials, 1 dominator. Chris Buescher dominated with 32 laps of the 110. Actually, it was kind of borderline of a dominator because I considered 30%. So that's just underneath the dominator status, but close enough. Chris Buescher had an extremely fast car, great pit strategy, just didn't have the tire longevity. And Kyle Larson ended up pitting, I think it was like 14 or 15 laps after Chris Buescher. But either way, we had 2 value picks with Brad Keselowski and Eric Jones. Good job on Eric Jones. Not typically known for his road course skills. He's not bad, but made it up to 19th from 38th. We had 3 guys that finished in the top 5, and we had a whopping $2,300 left over after this chaotic race at Sonoma. Other drivers that didn't make quite the optimal lineup because of either pricing or total points. You can see listed down here: Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, AJ Allmendinger, Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Todd Gillen, Corey LaJoie. But Brad Keselowski, now with another optimal lineup, has separated himself by 2 over Noah Gragson, Tyler Reddick, Ty Gibbs, and Kyle Larson, with 7 optimal lineups after 16 races. So Brad Keselowski has definitely turned the corner this year in this next-gen era and is kind of showing the way, at least in the optimal lineups. And he's actually been doing really, really well. All right, let's look at our practice speeds and finishing spots. And yeah, I still no heads or tails on if this practice speed information is giving us anything of real value. Nothing really made any sense. I mean, Michael McDowell, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney were some of the fastest guys in practice who ended up finishing in the top 10. But other than that, nobody else finished there. It's almost kind of like a curse to have the fastest single lap speed in practice because it's not translating over to quality finishes. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of the practice speeds. I'm not sure that there's a rhyme or reason, so I'm going to continue for a few more weeks looking at this information. The one spot that I do think is kind of showing up is, or it's helping, at least with Draftkings and figuring it out, is with our best value picks, which are the 8 cheapest drivers, and looking at their practice speeds and where they end up finishing. I mean, still, Ryan Preece, let's see, who had the best finish? Corey LaJoie. I mean, he was 20th in practice speed, started 17th, finished 11th, which is actually really good for Corey LaJoie. He's not typically known for being an amazing road course racer. I mean, none of these guys are slouches at it, but Corey LaJoie, it's not like he's Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., those types. But the one person who kind of practiced compared to their qualifying was Kaz Grala, and he ended up getting a 23rd place finish and a 16th place Draftkings total points. So I think this is kind of where the practice speeds may kind of help us a little bit in making and building our lineups, because we always have to have some value options. And this is kind of showing up where we can kind of have those options, especially maybe for this weekend. We'll see. All right, back to Iowa for this weekend's 350. Oh yeah, by the way, happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there and dads out there. We all appreciate our fathers. Some of us are fathers, and yeah, I get to celebrate watching NASCAR and going to my son's baseball game tomorrow. So have a great time with your family. I know I am going to. All right. So this racetrack is a short to intermediate style track. It's, like I said, 7/8 of a mile. It's progressively banked in the corners between 12 and 14 degrees. It's got about an 8-degree banking on the straightaways. Looking from above, the outline of the track is very, very similar to Richmond, but because of its geographic location, it has much harsher winters and summers, which creates a much faster aging track. Um, and just because there are some slight variations to it. It does race a little bit different than Richmond, but Richmond is the most similar track when we are comparing tracks. But this race length is 350 laps in length. The Dominator points will be 245, 157.5 fast laps, and 87.5 laps led. I would say most of the time, like at a Richmond, we would target 1 to 1.5 drivers for the optimal lineup for domination. And there's only one driver that I really kind of see as potential dominating performance, and that's going to be Kyle Larson this week. But I'm telling you, this race is setting up to be extremely chaotic. Watch me talk about all this chaos that's supposed to ensue. I'm not necessarily saying chaos of big wrecks like you see at super speedways and things of that nature, but I think so. For example, in the Xfinity race today, there were 9 cautions for incident, and all 9 of those drivers blew either right fronts or a front left. I'm not sure why Austin Hill blew a front left. They really don't put a whole lot of strain on the front left, other than I think when he pitted, he only took 2 tires, and he took right sides, which may have left the left a little exposed. But it's really hard to say what may have caused the left tire to blow. But either way, right front tires were absolutely the issue in the Xfinity race. Other tracks to compare to, like I said, as you can see from looking above, if you take away the grandstands and everything, Richmond looks a lot like and is very, very similar to Iowa. Iowa is just a tick longer than Richmond, but Phoenix is banked kind of similar. You can compare it; it's about the same length, and you know, Phoenix has different banking in all the corners, along with Gateway and Nashville, but they can be compared. There are differences in all of them, but since Iowa's kind of unique and we've never been there, these are probably our best options and choices to look at. So here is an example of what we saw in the Xfinity race today. This is the front right tire at the end of stage 2 for Brett Moffitt's car, the number 19 Toyota by Joe Gibbs Racing. This was after 55 laps. You can see where this arrow is pointing, you could see where it actually got down to almost the cords. But then on the outside of the tire was still perfectly fine. So a lot of blistering. I am not a tire expert. I am not a crew chief. And we don't have this type of issue in iRacing. So the best that I can find and get this explained, the reason why this potentially is happening more so here, and we saw some blistering last week at Sonoma, is the new pavement. The new pavement is creating higher speeds. It's creating higher friction, which is creating higher temperatures in the tires because of the new pavement. And because of the new pavement hasn't worn down, what ends up happening, and you'll see even on roads and highways, as a road or the asphalt begins to wear, the tar that holds the rocks in place begins to wear away, or it gets stuck to tires, or it gets washed off, and those types of things. So the same thing happens on speedways, is as the track ages and the asphalt ages, the tar that's embedded in between whatever aggregate that you're using, typically it's a local aggregate. Like the reason why Darlington is so abrasive is a lot of what is in Darlington is sand and shells and those types of things, because it's remotely kind of close to a beach area. Whereas probably out in Iowa, it's probably mostly just gravel or crushed rock. So, but what happens is that tar comes up and gets removed from surface. So then what happens is these soft racing tires run across it like a cheese grater, but they begin to fill in the holes in between all those rocks and take the place of what used to be tar. Well, as that begins to happen, you'll see a track transform and turn blacker and blacker. And that's the rubber being embedded inside the asphalt. Well, when that happens, the track gets a little bit more less abrasive, and the car handles differently. Depending on temperatures, it could end up making it slicker. Depending on tire compounds, it could start pulling that rubber up, and that's what you're seeing here was the hot tires running across the racetrack, laying down rubber on the racetrack. Well, the hot tire, then the next hot tire comes by, especially when they slow down for cautions, and it picks up the rubber out of the asphalt and gets stuck back to the tire. Well, we've got two things going on. We've got an old track on the straightaways and the upper grooves at Iowa. But the thing is, you've got fresh pavement on the lower 2/3 of all the corners that doesn't necessarily take this rubber in very well. Well, what that's doing is it's also creating a lot of heat because their corner speed is much greater because of the new asphalt. And with that higher temperature, it's causing blistering. And then they go off of that new asphalt onto the straightaway, which has a much more abrasive surface, which also has rubber laid down in the aggregate, and it's picking it up. So it's creating these different heights. So you've got where it got really hot, the tire came off of the actual surface and then stuck. Then the other old rubber that was on the track is getting stuck to the tire, which creates real havoc with the tire. It makes the tire feel like it's either going flat or it's got an issue. It creates a lot of vibrations within the car. Well, eventually what happens is you've got parts of the tire which seem to be perfectly fine to these almost look like flat spots, but they're not flat spots. They're where the tire blistered. Well, that rubber's gone. So if that happens twice in the same spot, you end up down at the cords. And then, eventually with enough heat and enough pressure, it blows the tire out. And then I say, no, you're headed into the outside fence. That's the best explanation that I can kind of come up with on what this is and what we're going to see tomorrow is. And the other thing is tomorrow, we start the race at 6 p.m. local time in Iowa. It's going to be 96 degrees and sunny. Even by the end of the race, which could be 10 p.m. local time in Iowa, it's going to be 88 degrees. The track won't have direct sunlight anymore, but the ambient temperature outside is still going to be 88 degrees. It is going to be hot. Well, what happens on a hot racetrack? Hot tires, hot engines, all those types of things. Number one, we're already worried about tires and temperatures of tires. Well, when you've got we're probably looking at 120 degree track temperatures with all the added pressures of racing at 120, 130, 140 miles an hour. We are definitely going to see extreme issues with the tires, in my personal opinion. Could be completely wrong with that, but I think we're going to see something along the lines of what we saw at Bristol. So, how a crew chief fixes that, I don't understand it fully, but it's all in camber and tire pressures and all those types of things. And just telling your driver, hey, back up your corner speed entry, slow down a little bit more, don't dive it in there. The problem is these guys want to race and they want to get to the front. Well, that could cost them greatly when their tire blows after 20 or 25 laps. So, there were cars that went through practice yesterday without really any issues. It could be that they just had a better tire. Because, you got to think, they're just mass made, just like everybody else's tire, and you occasionally get one that's, got a little bit of a defect in it. You just never really know. But either way, all these things are kind of adding up and potentially looking like we may have some real issues happening between temperatures, different pavement styles, the next gen car setups, and all those things. I think we're setting up for potential havoc. So, some of the optimal lineups to kind of look at, since we've never raced the Cup Series at Iowa. The Gateway race is 240 laps. We're going 350, so not a great example. This Richmond race at 407 is a little bit closer. We did end up having 2 dominators earlier this year in Richmond. We had 3 guys with place differential, and then Noah being kind of a cheaper option with Eric Jones. So once again, it's going to be. I really think that I really don't honestly. I don't know how I'm going to end up making my lineups. I think I'm definitely going to target a handful of drivers that are going to start up front and stay up front. We kind of saw that in the Xfinity race. And I think it's much more just the regular cream rises to the top. I think your older, more experienced drivers, your drivers who understand tire wear, and your drivers who know how to go fast at short tracks, who also take care of their tires, are going to be the ones that we see that rise to the top. For example, look back at Bristol, even though it doesn't really fall into this category because it's much higher banked. But because we saw that extreme tire wear, I'm going to lean a little bit into the Bristol from this earlier spring as an example of who to maybe look at. So, I mean, the Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Josh Berry, Martin Truex Jr. You know, the guys that have been doing this for a long time and have been very successful are the guys that we're probably going to want to target. But either way, here's kind of that new thing I've started this year when I'm looking at where are the highest point getters in Draftkings and where their starting positions are. Kind of the average is 2.5 from the top 5, another 2.5 from 6 to 10. So it's realistically 5. So half of the top 10 shows up in the top 15 in DraftKings points. Then it's another 5.7. So literally over 10 drivers are starting 20th or better. Then we've got some scragglers between 21 and 30, and then only really one driver 31st or worse. Now, all this gets switched around a little bit when you've got some really good drivers that are starting from the rear. And I didn't change this chart, so this chart is not correct. Either way. But that kind of gives you an example of what we're kind of going to be shooting for. Our practice laps. And our practice laps were all over the place because we had drivers on long runs, we had drivers on short runs, we had drivers making qualifying laps, we had drivers making pit road entry practices, we had a 50-minute practice, so we had a long time and a lot of data, and with everybody trying different stuff, it was really kind of hard to tell what people were doing and when they were doing it. For what I could kind of tell, at least the top 4 drivers, Noah, Gibbs, Bowman, and Haley, at the very end of practice were making qualifying runs, and as the track rubbered in yesterday for practice, the track actually began to get faster and faster. Now remember, with their qualifying run, they were putting on a brand new set of tires or just slightly scuffed tires and going out and running 2 to 3 laps. And they were going completely as fast as they could go without wrecking the car. They were not setting up for long run speed. They were not setting up for anything else other than just make the fastest 2 laps you possibly could. And, I mean, they were fast. 23.72 for Noah, 23.565 for Ty Gibbs. Compared to, that's not right. Noah got down to a 22 and change. I don't know why that's 23. Either way. Like I said, I don't know fully if this is... Yeah, Noah was at a 22.828. I know I have a 23.2. Sorry, my bad. Now our fall off, the guys that didn't fall off a whole lot seemed to qualify a little bit better. And then today, qualifying was after a rain delay, clean track. The first cars that went out were awful. They were super slow. And once the track kind of got rubbered in towards the end, we saw much better speeds in qualifying. So I honestly, I I'm going to probably use practice speeds as a gauge, maybe 10% of what I'm valuing somebody at. It's going to be much more of their past history on short tracks, and the similar style tracks, and how I think they're going to do with tire wear. Like I said, the Josh Berrys, the Kyle Larsons, the Denny Hamlins, and those types that I know have got a lot of experience with tire wear are going to be the ones that I'm probably going to end up targeting. But like I said, kind of probably what I think we should need to look at is the value guys and who potentially gives us maybe our best value. And once again, like I said, Justin Haley was out doing a qualifying lap to give him his fast lap. That was not really a true sense of where he was. And the other thing is we weren't seeing a ton of fall off. I mean, on the worst case scenario, our fall off was 0.593. What is this up here? So the average fall off was 0.261. So 0.2 of fall off after 10 laps. That's little to nothing. In fact, during practice, guys were having faster speeds at lap 40 than they were having at lap 10. And it's really hard to tell if they had come in and made a bunch of adjustments to get them faster or if the track had rubbered in. It's just so hard to say. So that's why I said these practice speeds are going to be probably a little misleading. And in fact, honestly, the qualifying speeds are probably going to be a little misleading. And this is going to be an extremely hard race to kind of figure out who to take and who not to take. That's why I think kind of we're going to have place differential is going to be a big factor. It typically is on the short tracks, and then 1 or 2 dominators per lineup, and that's really going to be the best way to kind of go about it. And until I really get into it, I have not had a chance to dive into it. I was watching the Xfinity race, I was getting this set up, and my son had baseball today. But either way, let's get into the driver by driver breakdown. Since we've never been to Iowa before, I put in Richmond fall race from 23 and the spring race from this year, the Phoenix spring race from this year, Gateway from this year, and Nashville from last year. To give me the stats for this line down here, which Kyle Larson at those 5 tracks has 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 5 top 20s. So all 5 were in the top 20, a 47.8 Draftkings average, and a 10.2 average finish. He is starting from the pole position. In practice, he was 13th in single lap. He did a total of 50 laps of practice. And he was 3rd on 10. His fastest 10 lap consecutive average, he was 3rd. We don't know how many 10 lap consecutive averages he may have run out of those 50. My guess is probably 1, but there could have been 2 or even 3 in there. Run 10 laps, come in, get some adjustments, go up, run 10 more, come back in and get some more adjustments. It's really hard to say. And like I said, practice speeds continue to increase throughout practice. And since we've never been to Iowa in the Cup Series, we'll lean a slight little bit, probably another 5 or 10% of when I'm looking at building my lineups. I'm going to look at what these drivers, if any of the drivers have ever been to Iowa in the other series, which is Xfinity and Trucks, how many races they ran, and how well they finished. Kyle Larson has never won a race at Iowa. He has raced there twice, and he's finished both of them in 5th because he has a 5th place average finish. But Kyle Larson now with 3 win stickers on the year. Way to go, Larson. Keep it up. So that's Kyle Larson. I like Kyle Larson to dominate early. But after the first round of pit stops, I honestly don't know. And I honestly think we potentially are going to see a competition caution. Probably, if I'm guessing, I've not heard that they're going to do one, but I've watched NASCAR long enough. This is lining up, especially since they're about ready to get another decent sized storm moving through Des Moines and Newton, which is just west of Des Moines or east of Des Moines. So the track's going to get washed off. All the rubber that was laid down from the Xfinity race today is going to be washed off. They're going to have a green racetrack. My guess is because we saw a fair amount of tire wear in practice that NASCAR will throw a competition caution. What is stage 1? Stage 1 is 70 laps. So I'm guessing probably lap 25, we probably will see a stage caution. But stage cautions are at 70, 210, and then the final end is at 350. So you've got a 70 lap run, 140 lap run, and 140 lap run. Oof. Okay. And if they were only able to go 20 laps in practice for some people before they started wrecking, we could potentially see a lot of cautions. But either way, I think I will have a decent amount of Kyle Larson because I think he at least goes and leads the first 35 laps. After that, it's going to be a ton of comers and goers and everything else. Andrew, welcome, buddy. Sorry I didn't see your message until just now. Wish they could get the tires to when you get fall off and not a bunch of blowouts. Yes. And that was the nice thing about Bristol is we saw huge amounts of fall off and we didn't see tire failures. My worry with the air temperature, track temperature being, the track temperature is going to be 120, 130 degrees, and the ambient air temperature is going to be in the mid 90s. I think, and because of the new asphalt, which is going to raise the temperature of the tires too, I honestly think that we'll probably end up seeing tire failures, which will be blowouts. And there were some really hard hits today in the Xfinity Series. Luckily enough, nobody was at least injured, or at least said they were injured. So yeah, I wish they would just the tire at Bristol was, for whatever reason, was great. It had a ton of fall off, but very few tires actually failed, or they ended up getting to the cords of the tire, which then caused a slow leak. We weren't seeing the sidewalls blow out on these things. So that and the other crazy thing about Iowa is because of this new pavement, if you get up into the third line, which is old pavement, it's absolutely completely slick, and there's gonna be a ton of marbles up there, which makes it even worse because those hot rubber tires are just picking up all the debris, and you lose all traction and end up probably hitting the wall. So that third upper lane is going to be absolutely no man's land. You do not want to go up there in the corners. But it was really nice to see in the Xfinity race today that by halfway through stage 2, they were able to run a full second groove and almost getting to a 2.5, right below where the new pavement ends and the old pavement was. So that black, the new asphalt is definitely going to be the line, and it's about 2.5 car widths wide. So you cannot really go truly 3 wide through there without having probably some issues. You can, but it's tight. So that's just kind of what we're looking at. Do you feel like it's risky playing drivers starting up front? Andrew, to be perfectly honest, it's risky to play anybody in this tomorrow. the variables are so wild for this race. Practice speeds were all over the place. Qualifying speeds had there was nothing to compare to. The people that were fast in practice didn't qualify well. The guys that practiced awful ended up qualifying decently well, and there was a mixed match of everything in between. Um, I mean, tomorrow is it is as big of a lottery as a super speedway, in my opinion. And it probably is going to be even more risky because you could easily have two cars that hit on their setup. They don't have tire issues, they don't have tire fall off, they don't have any problems, and we don't know who those are. You know, everybody after practice was saying, yeah, we had blistered tires. Yeah, we were having issues. Yeah, we only made it 20 laps. Yeah, we only had this. So, I mean, I honestly, this is one of the most confusing videos I've had to do because I don't have anything to point at and be like, yep, that's who you need to take. Other than maybe Kyle Larson. He's good at hunting and finding speed. He's good at taking care of his equipment for the most part. He has a tendency sometimes to mess up, which the track that you don't want to mess up on. So, I mean, even the person that I feel 30 or 35% confident in a Kyle Larson, I don't feel that comfortable with. But I could easily see Kyle Larson going and leading 320 laps. And the other absolutely wild thing, and I can't remember who talked about this. It was one of the four podcasts I kind of listened to. So I listened to the Teardown with Jeff Gluck and Bianchi. I listened to Denny Hamlin. It may have been on Denny Hamlin's podcast, Acts of Detrimental, where they were talking about this new, the new strategies that are starting to pop up. And it actually may have been Jeff Gluck. I can't remember, but it was one of the first two that come out every week. And I noticed it because for the past, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 weeks, I've got a running spreadsheet that every 10 laps, I'm writing down who is in the top 10. Also, every caution, what it was for, and pit strategies. And we're seeing massive differences in strategies across the board. It's not, whoever the leader is, the guy in fourth place is going to do something different because that's the only way, because we've learned over the course of this year that you can't play follow the leader with this car because you end up getting aero blocked. So what these crew chiefs and crews and engineers and all the smart people back in Charlotte, when they're looking at all the data, they're like, we're not going to beat them on the track. We're the same speed as them, and they're just going to aero block us. We've got to do something different in the way of pit strategy, tire strategy, fuel strategy to gain track positions. So, I mean, we saw it at Gateway. Literally, what was it, lap 5 or 10? We had a caution, and half of the back of the field came in and got tires and fuel. Like, it's way too early for that. What are they doing? And then, sure enough, we had the next caution, and you had another 10 or 11 cars decide they were going to pit. Well, the cars that pitted on lap 10 jumped over them, and then that whole set that pitted at lap 10 didn't pit at the first stage caution, and some of the leaders ended up staying out. So now you just had this huge cluster of all these cars on different pit strategies. And then it just became, when do cautions fall and when do cautions not fall? And it just scrambles up the field. So when you're like literally I mean, what Kyle Larson had somewhere between 15 and 20 fresher lap tires and more fuel than Martin Truex did in the Sonoma race. The strategies didn't fall any different really for Truex than it did for Larson, but they just came in at different times. And it worked out in Larson's favor. It really did not work out for Truex's favor because he ran out of gas. But maybe go with the ones who tested the older drivers that can manage tires. I mean, I agree with you on the tested thing, but Christopher Bell was here for testing. And what they learned in testing was to let the track rubber in before practice. So they waited 10 or 15 minutes to let the track rubber in. They go out, they run 20 laps, and kill their car with a blown right front tire. And there was no indication that that was going to be the case during their testing. So the guys that ran here for testing, I think you could take most of that data and throw it out the window. And then from practice to qualifying today, the speeds were a half a second different than the fastest laps from after practice. After the track got rubbered in, speeds were than 22.8. Well, the pole position for Kyle Larson was like 23.2. I mean, we're talking 4/10 of a second slower than the fastest speed in practice. Well, that's typically, we see that inverted. We usually see him go 4/10 faster for qualifying than we did in practice. Now, the other thing is we waited a day. It was late afternoon when they did practice, and it was morning. Well, yeah, it was just at noon when they did qualifying today. So ambient temperatures, track temperatures, because it had rained, we had a clean racetrack. All those things played into this thing, and we're going to see the same thing happen tomorrow. They qualified at noon today. They're going to start running this race at 6 p.m., and it's going to be 95 degrees on a clean racetrack. Andrew, I honestly, I would love to be able to give you guys some information and be like, oh yeah, Christopher Bell was out here. He was testing. He was great. He's a shoe-in for a top 5. Starting in 10th, we'll get some place differential. But he blew a tire. He's going to a backup. He still has a starting spot of 10th for Draftkings, and he's going to go to the rear. Well, it's so hard to pass at these shorter tracks, and if tire wear is that crazy, I don't know where Christopher Bell ends up falling. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that probably is going to be the smartest play, Andrew. I think it's going to be play it light, and also be willing to take some risks. It's going to be take a Cosgrala. You know, literally for the Xfinity race today, I was setting everything up, and I have my same routine. I'd fill out all my brackets, and I've got some drivers that I really like. I have some drivers that are in the middle, and I've got some drivers that, nope, not going to touch them at all. And David Starr was one of the drivers I was not going to touch at all. Nope, no way. Not going to touch him. And let me pull up the finishing order from the Xfinity race today. And I think David Starr definitely had a top 20. David Starr finished 17th after starting 31st. The guy's David Starr 60, 61. Born in 1967, so he's 57 or 58 years old. Has never had a top 10 in his entire Nuts Cup. I mean, yeah, in his entire Xfinity series, he's had 3 top 10s, 1 top 5. Never had a win. And he finished 17th in the race today. I don't, yeah. Yeah, I mean, here's the crazy thing. We had a crash, an oil line, a crash, electrical, crash, engine, crash, carburetor. Yeah, I mean, 27 people finished this race. Well, no, that's 26 people finished this race out of 38. So 12 people were out of the race. And it was Garrett Smitley finishing 3 laps down. So, but yeah, I mean, David Starr and Joey Gase, 16th and 17th. I would have never missed. So, yeah, be willing to play lineups that you don't think would normally work. It's going to be a lot of mixing and matching, and I really honestly don't know how it's going to play. It's going to be wild. I'm really fascinated to see how this thing ends up playing out. That's going to be probably the most entertaining part of this whole process, along with the race and everything else. But really kind of listening to the crew chiefs discuss with their drivers, looking at tire wear, looking at how this track ends up actually rubbering in, maybe going slow as a benefit. Yeah, but the problem is you can't get too far behind. That's why I think, maybe Christopher Bell is sitting in a really good spot, because he's going to have a 10th place starting spot, but have to start at 36. So if that's the case, then why not? You're not, more than likely, unless something really weird happens, you're not going to get into the top 10 by the end of stage 1. Just trying to race your way through the field. Just don't think it's going to happen. And if you do, you're really playing with danger, especially if we do have tire issues. So maybe the play is, Andrew, if you're Christopher Bell or somebody like that, you literally keep enough speed to stay on the lead lap and just kind of see where everybody else falls. It's not going to hurt you because you're already in 36th, 35th, so you just hang out there for the first stage and go, okay, let's see what this really is going to look like. That could be easily a play. But Christopher Bell, honestly, I'm going to be very, very light on Christopher Bell. He did practice here. He's not a full-out fade. I do not have any percentages because I literally am scratching my head on what to do with lineups. So, he got 10th in qualifying, but because he went to a backup, he's required to go to the rear of the field. So I think he ends up starting 35th. Austin Cedric had the same issue. He's going to start 36, and it just pushes everybody up 2 spots. So Chris Bell is going to go to the rear, and he's going to have a 10th place starting spot. Well, for Draftkings Worlds, that doesn't work out very well. If he's starting in 36 and has a 36 starting spot, you have nowhere to go but up. So it would be very interesting to take him. But since he's got a 10th starting spot, he's got to gain 16 spots just to get back to break even. So I probably am a pretty heavy fade on Christopher Bell. So Denny Hamlin, next in line here. Decent practice speeds for Denny, 8th in single lap, 4th in 10 lap averages. He did do 61 laps. And he was very vague in his interview with Jeff Gluck. No, not Jeff Gluck. Bob Pockers. So a great one to go listen to is Bob Pockers' Twitter. He has interviews with, 7 or 8 different drivers on the tire wear. And some people were very close-lipped on what their thoughts were and what they thought their crew chief was going to end up doing. And some were a little bit more open on how to fix it. So Denny was very kind of closed-lipped about it. So Denny, I think, has a thought process that he wasn't quite willing to share with everyone else. And he did 61 laps of practice. And as far as I know, he didn't blow a tire out and didn't hit a wall. So there's that. and he was decent and pretty fast in practice. And if we look at the races that we're comparing to, he's got a win, 4 top 5s, 4 top 10s, and 5 top 20s. A 3.8 average finish. Now, he's never started a race at Iowa, but at these like tracks, he's got the best average finish of the field. So starting in 12th, he's going to gain a spot because he's definitely going to take over the 10th place spot from Christopher Bell. So he's definitely moving up 2 spots because of that. So I definitely like the Denny Hamlin play. William Byron, next in line here at $10,000, does have a Xfinity win and a truck win. When we're looking at like style tracks, no wins, no top 5s, 2 top 10s, 4 top 20s, a 13.4 average finish, and he's starting in 4th. His practice speeds were, like I said, I mean, the practice speeds are what they are. I don't know how much we go for. I mean, here's a perfect example. His fastest practice speed was 24th yesterday, and he goes out and gets 4th in qualifying today. That's a huge jump. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, the times weren't that far off from each other. So, but either way, William Byron starting in 4th. I don't mind it. I'll probably be a little light because he is starting closer to the front. So yeah, Andrew, this is kind of what you were talking about and asking about. I'm probably not going to have a whole lot of William Byron. I'll have some. I think I'm going to be spread decently even throughout the field, to be perfectly honest. And that's probably the wrong way to. It's the wrong way to play DraftKings in tournaments. You kind of want to find your core 6, 7, 8 drivers, and then find your other 7 or 8, 9 sneaky picks that you think you can throw in with the ones that you think are going to do really well, and see if something hits. So, and I haven't seen Matt in here yet, but family guy, family man. He was. I think he was in 2nd in the engineer last week at Sonoma until Truex and Busch had their issues. And he and I were texting back and forth throughout the race. And he's like, yeah, I'm in 2nd, last lap, da-da-da-da-da. And then Kyle Busch wrecks, and Martin Truex Jr. finishes last on the lead lap because of his gas issues. And I pulled mine up, and I was in 1st for all of about 10 minutes. Until they moved Kyle Busch from 17th to 12th, and that took me out of 1st. So yeah, I was like, oh, I'm winning like a lot of money here. Yeah, I've learned with DraftKings, you do not count that money until it actually gets into your account, and it never made it. So I broke even pretty much last week. So I'm gonna be a little light on William Byron. I'm probably going to be a little light on Ryan Blaney. Kind of got the same stats. He's starting in 2nd. His practice speeds were 22nd and 28th. He does have 9 total starts here at Iowa and Xfinity and Trucks. He's got a win in both. He has finished in the top 20 and almost the top 10 in all of his starts. But at like-minded, or similar style tracks, he's got a 19.6 average finish. Yeah, that's rough. So not 100% sure what to make of that. His best track is Phoenix, where he finished, I think, 2nd last year in the fall race. That's not in this variable. Andrew B, I saw that. That sucks. Had the same thing happen when Bell got disqualified for passing. Yeah, it's rough. The race ends, and you're looking at DraftKings going, "Holy smokes! I'm winning X amount of thousands of dollars. This is awesome. This is what I play this for every week in and week out." And then you start to watch the chart, and they start shifting drivers on their finishing positions, and you're like, "Oh, here we go." And they say, "You know, DraftKings is all over the place," and then it's gone. So, I mean, the one time that I won the 10 grand at the Daytona race. I literally sat there. It ended up being the night that Michael McDowell won the race, and it was late when it finished. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was sitting on 10 grand. I was like, I'm not going to bed until I see this thing hit my account. And it finally hit my account at like 4 in the morning, and I went to bed. But that was awesome. So yeah, that was the final hook that pulled me completely into DraftKings. I'd been doing it, probably since 2015. But yeah, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and now I have a channel that I talk about it. But Martin Truex Jr. and I've had that was my best Cup finish ever. I've had 2 Xfinity races where I finished in first and won $4,000 or $5,000 in each of those, and then I've had a truck race where I finished first once and won like $4 grand. That was earlier this year. So definitely those are the ones that we're playing for. It's can you tread water and win just enough money to keep yourself afloat till you can hit one of the bigger payers. But Martin Truex Jr. 9,500. Speeds in practice were not great. Qualifying, not great. His average finishes at this style track's at 10.8. And if you want to kind of have the let's go out on a high note with Martin Truex Jr. deciding that he's going to retire at the end of this year, he's pretty much a lock-in on the points for the playoffs, but it sure would be nice for him to get a win and get that solid lock. What better way to do it than win at Iowa? I think it's a little bit of a long shot, but because he's starting in 31st with DraftKings, he does have my number 1 ranking, so there's that. But in that, the unlucky bug has bit Martin Truex Jr. all year. Maybe that he's got the monkey off his back that he's retiring, that then the good luck charm can come back around for Martin. So I'll definitely have some ownership of Martin, but I think him starting in 31st, I think he's probably going to be fairly heavily owned. So far, I think Martin Truex Jr. is going to be decently owned. I think Denny Hamlin's going to be somebody I target, and Kyle Larson. I'll probably fade off of William Byron and Ryan Blaney. Joey Logano. We've got the whole Joey Logano does really well at new paved tracks, new style tracks, first time going tracks type thing going for him. That's about it though. Starting 11th, his season has not been great other than when he was at North Wilkesboro. 23rd in single lap, 9th and 10 lap consecutive average. Now his average finishes at the similar style tracks is a 12.8, so not bad. I'll have some ownership in Joey. I'll probably have a little more ownership than I will of Ryan Blaney and William Byron, but probably not super heavy because Joey's also just been bit by the unlucky bug. So there is that. Brad Keselowski, who has been on a tear lately, starting in 5th. We look at his average finishes at similar style tracks, 6.4, second best on the board next to Denny Hamlin. 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s. He has 3 wins in the Xfinity Series here in Iowa. Now, they were a while ago, but he's got 3 wins at Iowa, which is tied for the most with Ricky Stenhouse and Eric Jones are the 3 drivers that have the most wins at Iowa and Xfinity and trucks. Starting in 5th, I'll probably have a little bit of ownership in Brad Keselowski. Probably not as much as Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, or Kyle Larson, but I will have some ownership in Brad Keselowski. Ty Gibbs, starting in 27th, had really good practice speeds until he blew a tire on lap 19 or 20. Scraped the wall, does not have to go to a backup. He's going to be secured in his 27th starting spot, but I mean, there's not much difference between 27th and 36, especially for somebody coming out of Joe Gibbs Racing, and Ty Gibbs. And Ty Gibbs has 2 ARCA wins. I did not break down the ARCA series for these drivers, but Ty Gibbs does have 2 ARCA wins here at Iowa. So he definitely knows how to get around this track and knows how to win. Starting in 27th, I mean, this thing's such a lottery that, sure, I'll have some Ty Gibbs because he's starting 27th and he was okay in practice. I like him probably better than I like the Brad Keselowski, Joe Logano play. It's kind of like a Truex play. It's a place differential play that I don't mind playing. Tyler Reddick starting in 8th. Tyler's really good in practice. I think he did have a tire issue at the very end of practice, but he did not hit the wall very hard, so he does not have to go to a backup car. He keeps his starting spot. I don't mind probably some Tyler Reddick. This is not his best style racetrack. 14th place average finish, 1 top 5, 3 top 10s. Now he does have 9 total starts here at Iowa, no wins, 2 top 5s in both series, 3 top 10s in both series. His Xfinity's average is a little bit less, 14.8, and truck is 5.3. I think Tyler Reddick kind of probably is lining up for finishing where he starts type of thing. Maybe a couple spots better, maybe like a 5th or 6th. So that's kind of where I'm thinking about Tyler Reddick. I'll have some ownership because his practice speeds were pretty good, especially his long run speed. He was first in long run speed. Long run being 10 laps. I guess that could be long if you're only going to get 20 laps out of a tire. God, I hope that's not the case. That's going to be a really long night. All right, Chase Elliott next in line here at $8,700, starting in 9th. I mean, I'll give Chase Elliott this. He is the most consistent driver so far this year. Nothing real glamorous for Chase Elliott. Did get the win in Texas, but he is just consistently finishing top 5 or top 10, week in, week out. I think this is kind of a safer play, but I'm not sure anybody's really that safe at Iowa this week. But he was 5th in single lap, 12th in 10 lap consecutive average, a 10.8 average finish at similar style tracks. He's raced here 6 other times in Xfinity and trucks, and you can see those stats there. So I don't mind some Chase Elliott. I'll probably have about the same amount of Chase Elliott as I do Tyler Reddick. Chris Buescher has been money the past 2 weeks on DraftKings. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was led the most laps at Sonoma, and I think he actually may have led the most laps at Gateway, correctly. But yeah, Chris Buescher is definitely, he and Brad Keselowski both have been really, really good picks for DraftKings. So yeah, I mean, keep running that horse. That horse doesn't ride no more. So yeah, I'll definitely have some Buescher. I'll definitely have some Brad K. And Chase Elliott's just been super consistent this year, so definitely kind of take some of him. Speaking of Chris Buescher, he's next in line here at $8,500. Starting in 15th, his practice speeds were, like I said, whatever this means, 23rd and 21st. He does have a win at similar style tracks. Yeah, he won the fall race of 23 at Richmond, if I remember that correctly. 8.8 average finish on similar style tracks. That's pretty good. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s. In fact, 8.8 might be the 3rd best or 4th best average finish at similar style tracks. He's got 4 starts in the Xfinity Series, 1 win, and a 10.3 average finish. So he kind of knows how to get around this style track. And like I said, if I remember correctly, he won the fall race at Richmond. And that's the sister track to this track. So definitely like some Chris Buescher starting in 15th. So maybe a little bit of place differential possibility there. Ross Chastain, as far as I know, Ross and John Hunter Nemechek were the only 2 drivers in today's Xfinity race who kind of got a taste of what the tire wear is going to be kind of looking like, running a different tire, different diameter tire, all the things are different, but rubber's still rubber and asphalt's still asphalt. When you've got two different asphalts and one rubber, I think that's what we're going to run into. Plus, the temperatures are going to be much hotter for the Cup race than they were for the Xfinity. That in a completely different car. But at least Ross ran all the laps, and he had a really good finish today, if I remember correctly. But Ross Chastain starting in 17th. We've got some place differential. His practice speeds were good in 6th and 13th. He did spin in practice, and they did this really weird, I don't know, put it up on a lift and wheeled his car back to pit road. He does have the most starts at Iowa. I did not put the Iowa start today for him in here. This was already done. So he's actually got 15 total starts at Iowa. And I think he may have actually finished top 5. So you can kind of add that to the list. But most experience out of all the Cup drivers will be Ross Chastain. Kyle Busch, 8,200, starting in 7th. And in fact, talking about Kyle Busch, our favorite spinner, he was interviewed by, wasn't Gluck, it was Bob Pockris. He goes, he told Bob, I can't remember exactly what it was. I wish I'd saved it and put it on here because it was quite funny. He goes, tire wear? I don't know about tire wear. I have enough trouble just trying to not spin out every week on my own, much less with bad tire wear. He's like, I'm not really that worried about it. I'm just going to try not to spin myself out or something along those lines. I almost fell on the floor laughing so hard when I heard him say that. So, I mean, at least he gets it. Not great in practice, 30th in single lap, 10th and 10 lap consecutive average, 17.8 average finish. Now, he does have 2 starts here in the Xfinity Series, 1 win and 1 second place finish. So, he also knows how to get around this track if he can figure it out and not spin the car out. So, I will be a fade on Kyle Busch. I'm a fade on Kyle Busch until he figures out how not to spin every week or get spun out or have bad luck. So Kyle Busch is on the naughty list, and he's going to stay there until probably he burns me 3 times in 3 consecutive weeks. It just is what it is. Alex Bowman, $8,000 starting in 33rd. And exactly what I'm talking about of just what happened in qualifying. I know what happened. He was early in qualifying. The track had not rubbered in yet, and he was just god awful loose. I get it, but how were you 3rd fastest in practice yesterday, 2nd in 10 lap consecutive average, and go get 33rd in qualifying? So Alex Bowman, yeah, I'll probably have a fair amount of Alex Bowman tomorrow. Ton of place differential potential here. So yeah, I like the Alex Bowman play. Way better than I like the Kyle Busch play. So definitely have some Alex Bowman. I mean, just remember, all these picks are completely. I said you're going to have to get uncomfortable with picks for the race tomorrow. That's all I got. And Josh Berry goes out and starts in 3rd. A track that I go, okay, this track is lining up to be right up Josh Berry's aisle. And he qualifies 3rd, and I'm like, that's going to hurt on me taking very much of Josh Berry. I mean, he could easily win this race. He could easily finish top 3. That play is absolutely... Now, do I look at a Josh Berry finishing in the top 3 and a Kyle Larson finishing in top 3? I'll take Kyle Larson 10-1 on Josh Berry. But I still think out of those 10 times, Josh Berry will get a top 3. Maybe even 2 out of 8. Or 2 out of 10. 20% of the time. So, I mean, it's well within reason. He is absolutely fighting for his job for next year. This is a good spot to pull off a miracle, especially if everybody else is having issues and you don't burn your tires up, which Josh Berry is very good at not doing. So I don't like the Josh Berry play. I will sprinkle him in very sparingly. Bubba Wallace, $7,700. He's got 9 total starts here between Xfinity and trucks. Only 1 top 5, 5 top 10s. And similar style tracks, he's only got 4 top 20s and no top 10s with a 15.4 average finish. I think we're kind of lining up for Bubba Wallace to finish where he starts. Of course, anything's possible at this track tomorrow. We do happen to see a mass breakout of tire failures. Who knows where anybody's going to finish? But I think if everything stays equal and level, Bubba Wallace finishes where he starts. So not a whole lot of interest there. Austin Cindric starting in 21st. Hold on, he wrecked. He's going to go to the back, but stays with the 21st starting spot. So he will be starting 36th on the field and not 21st, but only gets credit for starting 21st in DraftKings. So not a whole lot of interest in Austin Cindric. We'll just skip right over that. Chase Briscoe starting in 6th. He was pretty good in practice, 10th in single lap, 5 and 10 lap consecutive average. I'm all right with all that. 17.2 average finish, though, at like-minded tracks. He does have 1 win here in the Xfinity Series. It's kind of like Josh Berry. I will sprinkle him in sparingly. I will take a Chase Briscoe over an Austin Cindric and Bubba Wallace. I'll take a Josh Berry over those two also. So about the same. So if I'm running it, I'm probably going to have like 10% ownership in both Josh and Chase Briscoe. Michael McDowell starting in 22nd. 8 total Xfinity starts, 6.9 average finish. I mean, good with average finish for Michael McDowell. But I think that was back. I mean, it was a long time ago. Starting in 22nd, 25th in single lap in practice, 17th in 10 lap. Anything's possible, but I think it's, we're looking at a 15th, 16th place finish, 17th place finish for Michael McDowell. I mean, anything's possible. He could get to a top 10, which makes him playable. I'm probably 5 to 10% on the ownership scale with Michael McDowell. Daniel Suarez, I mean, his practice speeds were good. 15th in single lap, 17th in 10 lap consecutive average, starting in 13th, but 5 total Xfinity starts with only 2 top 5s. 5 to 10% ownership in Daniel Suarez. Probably not a whole lot. Kind of a fade, to be perfectly honest. Noah Gragson, fastest in practice, which he was doing a qualifying run. 30th in single lap, and I think he blew a tire also in practice, but did not mess up his tire enough or his car enough to have to go to a backup car. In fact, I think he was able to get tires on it and go back out. But either way, starting in 23rd, I'll have a little bit of ownership in Noah Gragson starting in 23rd. I think he could get himself into a top 15 type spot. So I'll definitely have some ownership, maybe 10 to 15%. Next in line here, Todd Gillen. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I know Todd's been running really, really well lately, but I'm not sure he's been running well enough for me to take a whole lot of ownership with him starting 14th. I mean, when I say a sprinkle, I'm going to say a dash of Todd Gillen, like 5%. Carson Hocevar. I mean, I'll give Carson Hocevar anything. He is consistent with starting somewhere between like 18th and 20th every week, week in, week out. And then he just goes out and finishes within about 3 spots of where he starts. So I'll give him that. But that doesn't typically put you even remotely close to being in the top 15 in DraftKings points. So not a whole lot of interest for Carson Hocevar. Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece has a win here in the Xfinity Series, 22.3 average finish, 6,500, starting in 29th. A lot of place differential here. This track lines up super well for Ryan. He has a very similar style to Josh Berry. He's very good at tire conservation. He's typically very good at anything less than a mile. So I definitely like Ryan Priest's starting spot. Decent amount of place differential here. So I'm probably going to be at least 10 to 15, if not 15 to 20% on Ryan Priest. Eric Jones, $6,400. Starting in 32nd, was god awful in practice. 36th and 35th, almost dead last in both categories. Starting in 32nd, you're starting really far back. So I'll have like a 10% ownership in Eric Jones. I don't mind taking some ownership there. AJ Allmendinger, I think best case scenario he finishes where he starts. Worst case scenario, he's going to be in the high 20s. So I don't have a whole lot of interest in AJ Allmendinger. So he may end up burning me tomorrow. Austin Dillon starting in 36, who just missed both qualifying laps up. Got super loose. He was also the first car out on track on a very, very green, clean track. It had just finished raining, so he was going to be the slowest. I think this is probably a shoe-in play. I wouldn't do a whole lot. I mean, shoe-in play. I'm probably 20-25% ownership in Austin Dillon. He's going to be pretty heavily owned, being scored the last car starting the race. Now, we know that there's 2 cars going to the rear, so Austin Dillon will move up at least 1 or 2 spots, depending on which line both the drivers. I think they're both one's inside, one outside. So Austin Dillon will move up at least 2 spots. Yeah. But once again, kind of like Eric Jones, he's starting so far back. I think Austin Dillon will have some decent ownership. Really to make it into the top 15 in points or be close to optimal, he's going to need to get about 42 points. And if he can get to 20th, he's already got 16. Getting up to 20th from 36 is almost 40 points. So I'd definitely like some Austin Dillon play. And same thing with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Went out qualifying early and just could not hold the car without getting loose until it rubbered in. Then once it got rubbered in, he was fine. So starting in 35th, no place to go but up. Once again, he's probably going to be pretty heavily owned. And if we look at his Xfinity starts, he has 6 total starts, and half the time he has won this race. A 7.3 average finish. Ricky runs this track very well, and if we look at his practice speeds, he was 12th and 16th. So I definitely like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. play more than I like the Austin Dillon play, and I actually like both of them pretty well. I could easily see a scenario where you've got Ricky Stenhouse, Austin Dillon, Eric Jones, Ryan Priest as 4 of your 6. Then you literally sprinkle in Kyle Larson and a couple guys that are starting up front. Maybe you take those 4. It maybe save $15,000 in salary cap, which is absolutely insane. But I could easily see that happening and being a play. You could take a Josh Berry with those 4 guys, and maybe even. Why did I go to full screen on this? Oh, whatever. A Cosgrala, to really call it crazy. I didn't go full screen on this. I don't want to do that now. Leave it here. There's my screw up. We have to go full screen. I always have one. Justin Haley starting in 19th. His practice speed, we remember, was probably a qualifying speed in 4th. And then qualifying in 19th. I don't mind the Justin Haley play starting in 19th. I'm not going to be super heavy on the play, but I don't mind the play at all. He's been running consistently, finishing in the top 15. If he can do that again at $5,800, there's definitely value there in the Justin Haley play. Starting a little bit further up than I would like to see. It's going to be a little harder to get into an optimal lineup situation unless he makes it into like a top 8 or top 5 scenario. But heck, we see a rash craziness of tires It could easily be there. Corey LaJoy, 5,700. I just do not think this race sets up very well for Corey LaJoy at all, especially starting in 24th. He's got a 30.6 average finish at the similar style tracks. He's never been here before in Xfinity or trucks. His practice speeds were fair, 14th and 20th, but I think best case scenario is he finishes where he starts. So probably won't have a whole lot of ownership in Corey LaJoy. Though he did have a really good finish last week at Sonoma, so good on him for that. John Hunter mini check, $5,600, starting in 34th. Just for some reason, and we've talked about this every week, Legacy Motor Club and this new Toyota package have just not quite been able to get on the same page. I think once they do, they're going to be in pretty good shape. But until they do, I'm not 100% sold on John Hunter Nemechek or Eric Jones. But we do have the upside of John Hunter Nemechek starting 34th. He did race the Xfinity race today. He did end up having a couple issues and not having a great finish, but was leading the race for 30, 40 laps. So he definitely kind of understands how to get around Iowa. Zane Smith starting in 26. There's nothing here that I'd have a whole lot of interest in Zane Smith. I could see maybe a 5% ownership, if that. Yeah. Same thing with Harrison Burton starting in 25th. His practice speeds were pretty good, but it's hard to say if that wasn't a qualifying attempt at practice. But no top 20s out of the 5 tracks that we're comparing to. Yeah, I'm going to fade off of that. Daniel Hemrick, kind of the same boat. Practice speeds were not there. The average finishes aren't there. So I'm going to fade off of that. Kaz Grala, starting 28th, kind of the same boat. Not really sold on this entry either. If Kaz were starting in 34th, 35th, 36th, I could see some interest in it. I mean, honestly, and I think I talked about this earlier, I think the way for a driver to go out and drive this track is to literally, first stage, you use it as another practice session, just maintain enough speed to keep yourself on the lead lap, see kind of what happens, see what everybody's tire wears are. You're running maybe a little bit slower lap speeds, see if your tires hold up a little bit better for later in the race. And then once you kind of get a more comfortable feel of how the race is going to end up playing out, then you start to move through the field. So, that would be the Austin Center, Christopher Bell's. Now, I don't really plan on playing them because they have 10th and 21st starting spots already. But, an Austin Dillon, he's easily got enough speed to probably stay on the lead lap, if not the first lucky dog. Probably stays on the lead lap. He was fast enough in practice. I'm not sure John Hunter is able to do that, but if I'm a crew chief or I'm a driver for this race, and I'm starting 30th or worse, I'm just gonna be like, you know what? I'm gonna take it real easy, real slow, try not to get into any problems, and get through stage 1 and kind of see where my tires are, where everybody else's tires are, see where they're running on lap speeds and those types of things, and then we can go forward from there. There's still enough time to get to the front. And I didn't fix this one, so there's my other mistake for the week. Well, I'm an hour and 23 minutes in. I've rambled on long enough. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there. We appreciate you. Have a great day tomorrow. Whether you're a dad or soon to be dad or whatever, or if you have a dad, make sure you reach out and tell them happy Father's Day. Dads are important in this world, just like moms are. All of your parents are very important. They kind of got you to this place in this world. So show them a little love for the next day. But either way, enjoy the race. There's actually the U.S. Opens on tomorrow until that. So lots of things that you can kind of do and enjoy and relax for your Father's Day. And hopefully go win some money on Draftkings. Either way, hit that like, subscribe button. We will see you next week as we go to New Hampshire. I don't know the schedule, but more likely we will have another Saturday night breakdown. But either way, thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here.
Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around at the end to do that.
Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hey, oh yeah.
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal.
Thanks, man. Good job all day.
Great work, my man. Great work. Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys.
Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job. Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.